Kia ora and welcome. My name is Ellen Rose and this is the Creative Cure to Boredom. I've created this channel to share and explore some inventive approaches to art using everyday materials you can find in your own home. The hope is that it makes the current lockdown and isolation situation just a little bit more bearable. Today we're going to have a look at turning plants to paintings. So what you'll need to do is grab a selection of plants from outside, so that might be leaves or flowers, and grab a hammer, some paper and some masking tape. Hope you enjoy. So before I get started, I'm just wrapping the hammer with a couple of tissues on the top. This is to soften the blow when I end up crushing the petals. If it's too harsh, so if you just have the metal on the petals, you can get some real solid rings, and that's not necessarily the effect that I want. So a plastic mallet would be really good for this as well, something that just sort of has a softer edge, but you can still sort of get that crushing action going on. So I'm creating almost like a cherry blossom picture, and I'm going to do 3 different styles or techniques with this material or medium. So first of all, you can see that I'm tearing the masking tape to create my forms, and in this middle section I'm actually going to do the negative space of the branch. So you can see that I'm using scissors to cut around the shape with the tape, and I'm not using the shape that I cut out, I'm using the outside of that shape to get that form. And I've decided some of the little cutouts that I have made in this second section, I'm actually using the cutout bits in the first section to give some firmer looking flowers as well. So I'm doing a mixture of tearing and cutting the masking tape. It's not the easiest thing to cut, but you can get some shapes if you persevere with it. So this masking tape is serving as a guide or a stencil for the petals that will come later. So anything that has masking tape on it will technically end up being white at the end. So I started adding some petals to the page, and I started hammering and realized that it wasn't getting a real sort of rich color through. So I've decided to rub with my hands instead. I am working on paper. If you do want to work on textiles, so on scraps of material, the petals do absorb a little bit better into the material. However, there's sort of less control over trying to create shapes with that. So as you can see, I'm just rubbing in with my fingers the petals to get some of those different pigments happening. So there's some nice oranges from the orange flowers. The pink flowers have come out quite purple, and the purple flowers have come out pretty strong as well. Now with this third section, I've gone back to the hammer because I want to create a slightly different effect on this end bit. And I'm just going to draw around the forms quite loosely, just to again create a slightly different technique in using these materials. So I'm just using a fine liner, a black pen. You could use any kind of black pen for this sort of pen work as well. It's not particularly detailed. And now it's time to remove my masking tape and see how the forms worked out. So this is the final result. You can see 3 quite different styles of mark making here. I think my preference would be for the middle one or the one towards the right of the picture, and less so the silhouette on the left. I think the middle one has some really interesting marks where there's been a bit of bleed out through the masking tape, and I feel like that creates quite an interesting form that's possibly a little bit more organic. And the same with the picture on the end, because it's not fully saturated with colour. There was some really interesting and organic line making that I was able to make with a pen over the top because I hadn't drawn out the form. So it was, yeah, a little bit more intuitive, and I think it makes for a slightly nicer picture. So I think that's something that I'd like to explore a little bit more, that combining the two elements, pen and the crushed flowers. You can see that there's some really interesting tones in that background on this side. And I do think that there's a really interesting layering happening there. But I think possibly it's the subject matter. So just the silhouette of the flowers, I don't find interesting enough for my tastes. So that's something that I might try to explore a little bit with later. Anyway, I'd love to hear if you've explored using flowers as a painting medium before. So please do leave your comments or suggestions below. I'd love to hear from you. I hope you enjoyed the video. My name's Ellyn Rose. This has been the Creative Cure to Boredom. Till next time, ngā mihi nui.